Welcome everybody to today's session. Today is going to be the first in a three-part series on understanding addiction and addiction recovery. This video is going to specifically answer the question from my perspective, is addiction a disease? And if it is, what does that mean? If it isn't, what does that mean? You've probably heard of this concept that addiction is a disease, like cancer or diabetes. This is very common in addiction recovery center treatment programs. It's common in the 12-step programs, and just a lot of people who do addiction recovery work really teach this concept that addiction is a disease. Ever since I've been doing this, and I've been working with addiction for probably about 12 plus years, and I've probably worked with thousands of people struggling with an addiction. And ever since I've started in this industry and this subject matter, this concept that addiction is a disease is something that's never really set right with me. I've always kind of struggled with that. People will also say something to the effect of once an addict, always an addict. And I don't like that either. And I don't even like using the word addict a lot, because in our culture and in our society, the word addict has a very negative connotation. I mean, just think about it as you were watching this video. When I said the word addict, what's the first things that came to your mind? Most people come up with words like junkie, loser, cheat, manipulator, liar. There's a lot of words that come up when we hear the word addict. And those are usually very negative. And so I try to stay away from that phrase. I don't want the people I work with, and I don't want you to identify yourself and label yourself as such. Because again, when you do, even if it's not conscious, I believe subconsciously you're telling yourself, I'm a loser, I'm a junkie. And so I want to get that out of our minds right from the start. As I've worked with individuals or even those in a group setting, I've tried to encourage them not to identify themselves as, hi, my name's Joe and I'm an alcoholic, or my name's Joe and I'm an addict. What I would like them to say is, hi, my name's Joe and I'm struggling with an alcohol addiction, or I'm struggling with a substance addiction. To me, I think that just carries a different connotation, a different meaning. There's certain criteria that it takes for one to be diagnosed as having a substance use disorder or any other addictive disorder. My philosophy of once that we can say that we don't match that criteria, then I don't want people calling themselves an addict. Now, it doesn't mean that once you overcome those criteria and stop using for a length of time, that I would say you can go back to using responsibly or engaging in your addictive behavior responsibly. I'm not saying that at all. I encourage people to stay away from it indefinitely, but I don't want them to, for the rest of their lives, identify themselves as an addict. That's just me. You think differently, that's okay. If you want to identify yourself as an addict forever, be my guest. I just don't encourage people to do that, and I don't want them to see themselves as that way. Now, I do call addiction a disease, but I call it a dis-ease. People who struggle with addiction are not at ease in their life. Their life is imbalanced, their life is chaotic, and they are just trying to get some sense of balance and equilibrium in their life, or some sense of peace. And so that's the kind of disease I think addiction is, a dis-ease. So I want to go over a couple of definitions of what I think defines addiction appropriately. The first is a habitual response and source of gratification or security, a way of coping with internal feelings and external pressures. Second, an attempt to control and fulfill the desire for happiness. Third, a pathological, abnormal love and trust relationship with an object or event. And finally, an attachment to something or someone outside yourself that you feel you need to provide a sense of inner satisfaction or relief. Let's look at some of the key words in these definitions. These are coping, happiness, relationship, and relief. And that's what I think addiction is. It's just the desire to want relief and happiness and a way to cope with the stressors of life. So to me, addiction really is a symptom to a much bigger problem. So I want you to understand that addiction is not just someone's way of giving you the finger and telling you to go take a hike, and that they're just trying to make their life and your life miserable. They're really not. The purpose in addiction are these four key things: coping, relationship, happiness, and relief. So I'm going to get more into that in the next video in understanding the addiction cycle. But I hope this starts to help you understand at least my perspective on addiction. You may have a different perspective, you may have heard different perspectives. But as I share the thoughts that I've shared with you today and what I will in the next two videos in understanding addiction, I think it'll resonate with you. I think you will go, that makes sense. Because everybody I've shared this with, that I've worked with, they've looked at this and they've said, yeah, that's me, that's it. Looking at addiction as a disease like cancer and diabetes doesn't resonate with most people. If it does for you, that's okay. But if it doesn't, I want you to know you're not alone. And I also want you to know, as you watch this, that if you're struggling with an addiction, or if you have a loved one struggling with an addiction, that there is change, that people can overcome it. There is hope. And if you haven't watched my video on the stages of change, please watch that as well, because that explains where an individual needs to be successful in recovery. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get all the other videos on addiction and other important mental health topics. Also, give it a thumbs up and make a comment that you liked it. And also share it with someone who may be struggling with an addiction. Until next time, make it a great day and make it a great week.